Okay, so you've got a voice in your head telling you you're not good enough. Let's deal with it. Everybody experiences life a little bit differently. We don't all see life in the same way. Our perception is limited and it's shaped by our unique experiences. It's almost as if when we look out into the world, we see it through a filter. Everything that comes in comes through a pair of glasses. It's important to recognize that there is differences between everybody because nobody has had the same experiences in life. Even a brother and sister will have experienced their upbringing and their relationship to their parents in a different way. Even when they look back on their life and try to analyze it, they will not have the same conclusions. These filters can be changed. They're not fixed. We created these filters as we were growing up, and we often use them subconsciously without giving it any conscious thought at all. This is an important thing to realize because then we can begin to manipulate the filters and change them so we start to get out of life what we want to experience. Once we realize that we have control over what we see in the outside world by changing the filter that we have, that's when we start to give power back to ourselves and leaving from the victim mindset. Ultimately, we are in control of our experience. And while we can't necessarily shape the world itself and what it's doing to affect us, we are actually able to choose how we react to that effect. Accepting that we are in control of the filters that we have empowers us to take action, to spend time reworking those filters so that the life that we experience is the life that we want. When we have beliefs that hold us back or cause us harm, we often refer to these as limiting beliefs. And these are often unconscious and tend to play out and may cause us to start having repeating patterns in our lives. A limiting belief can often cause unintentional negative effects in your life. And this is because we go through life on an automatic autopilot in some sense, and we start to believe things that may not be true. These beliefs will shape the information that comes to us. So when something begins to affect us, we run it through the filter of our limiting belief, and that causes us to come up with a certain conclusion. Now that conclusion may not be accurate, but it only applies because of the limiting belief that we have. Limiting beliefs are often unconscious and affect our actions. It's a good practice to go ahead and challenge our limiting beliefs once we recognize them. One way to do this is to write down all of the limiting beliefs that we've managed to identify in our thoughts, and then taking the time to find one example where that limiting belief is not true in our life. If we're able to disprove it even once, that proves that the limiting belief is not absolute and there may be another way to look at life. This is a good exercise to do. What I tend to try and do is every time I recognize that I have a belief that might be causing negative effects in my life, to note it down and review it later on in the week. That way I end up with a list of potential beliefs that I may need to reconsider, and taking the time to then analyze them and decide whether they are always true as an absolute or whether there are times when this belief actually is incorrect. And if it's incorrect sometimes, it may be worth reworking this because the filter is potentially going to lead to me getting misleading information. Once the limiting belief has been identified and disproved, then we can start the process of repairing this. A good way to repair limiting beliefs is to create an affirmation that works against the limiting belief. That every time you think this limiting belief, you're able to say out loud or in your head the affirmation that you've created to counter it. You can replace the limiting belief with a positive and truthful affirmation that helps you to start disproving it on a conscious level, because we need to remember that the limiting beliefs we have are subconscious, and it will take conscious effort to reprogram them inside of our subconscious. Our subconscious mind gets programmed by two things: repetition and authority. That's why oftentimes we tend to hold beliefs that were given to us as children, because we spent a lot of our life repeating the same belief. And also we had powerful figures in our lives like parents and teachers, coaches that told us things and we felt at the time we needed to believe them. You can use this to look back on the things that you believe and try and uncover who it was that got you to believe them. And once you recognize that you may have believed somebody that had authority over you, even though it wasn't true, you might begin to revise the beliefs that they had given you. Another thing to pay attention to is repetition. If you've built a habit of telling yourself the same story over and over in life, that might also be something that's not true, and you've just convinced yourself through repetition. Once we understand how the self-conscious mind is programmed, we can use those tools to reprogram the unconscious mind through conscious intention. This is where your affirmations come into play. You want to have affirmations that you believe to be true. You want to use them on a regular basis so you have that repetition, and you want to speak them with power and authority. You want to really be confident in what you're saying. That's why it's important that you believe in the affirmations that you're using. There's a difference between lying to yourself and telling yourself something that's going to be true in the future. One example would be if you believe yourself to be unhappy. Instead of telling yourself, I am happy, you could tell yourself, I am working towards happiness every day and every moment. This encourages you to start taking action, and it also reaffirms the process and the movement in the correct direction without lying to yourself. Once you have one of these powerful affirmations, every time something negative comes into your thoughts, you're now able to go to that affirmation, to say it out loud or in your mind, and start to talk against the negative and limiting belief that you have. And then through repetition and the authority and passion you speak it, you will eventually reprogram that thought. You will have it less and less often, and you will go to the new de facto, which is the positive affirmation that you want to achieve. And if your affirmation is something like, I work towards happiness every day and every moment, you might find that within a few years of speaking this, you are able to tell yourself, I am happy, with confidence and with truth. Remember to speak your affirmation often and with conviction. Over time, you will reprogram your conscious mind and you'll begin to believe and see the world in the new way that you're creating. Once you recognize that you are able to design the life you want and you put the effort and work into that, you will find a power that you have never seen before. We are not victims to this life. We have control to change the things that we want to change. I hope that you guys were able to take something out of this and that it was helpful in some way. If you found this helpful, consider hitting the subscribe button and liking the video. I make content around wellness and balance in a goal to try and reach the best version of ourselves and ultimately find peace in the life that we live. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have an excellent day.